Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always is directed by Eliza Hittman and focuses on a young 17-year-old girl called Autumn who travels to New York with her cousin Skylar to seek out medical advice for an unintended pregnancy. Ever since this movie premiered at the Sundance Film Festival all the way back in January when cinemas were open, I've been wanting to give this movie a watch because I've heard nothing but great things about it, and now that I've actually seen this movie, I can completely understand all of the rave reviews that this movie got, because this is a very grounded and realistic portrayal of something that happens quite a lot of the time, but never really gets the acknowledgement that you would expect something like this to happen, which is exactly what director Eliza Hittman is trying to do with this movie. Her inspiration for doing this movie in the first place was after reading a few newspaper articles and doing a bit of research about young girls who would, travel miles across country just to seek out advice of unintended or unwanted pregnancies. And because it is something that maybe doesn't get the acknowledgement it deserves, I feel like this movie does this sort of thing justice, whilst also riding a very fine line of, not going for a very shock value perspective on the whole thing. Because if most other directors were given a movie like this, they'd probably go for a very overdramatic angle of it all. They'd make it very shocking, very traumatizing, or very, like I said, overdramatic. But this movie takes a very grounded, very quiet and restrained, realistic approach on the whole thing, and I think it works so much better because of that. From the grounded and muted cinematography to the very understated lead performances, this is a movie that shines as a very quiet but incredibly potent character-driven drama that just kind of revels in its realism. There is not a single moment in this movie where it goes for full-on Hollywoodized drama, where one character has a go at another character, or there's that big breakout moment where one character completely loses it. There's not a single moment like that in this entire film. Like I said before, it's a very restrained and quiet movie that focuses on creating a very realistic and natural tone. And it pretty much sticks to that throughout the whole movie. And whenever the movie does need to get to an emotional core, it doesn't hit you over the head with it. It just kind of lets you observe these things as if it was just real people going through these motions. And that's what I really loved about this movie. The fact that it is very nuanced, the fact that it is very realistic in almost every single aspect. It almost feels like you are a third person going on this journey with these two characters. The two lead performances in this movie are absolutely brilliant, but my favourite by far is Sydney Flanagan as the main character, Autumn, purely because of what she is able to do with facial expressions and nuanced looks that she gives to her character that say so much more about her character than any of the lines she says throughout this movie, which is saying something considering she doesn't have many lines in the first place. So this movie is pretty much dependent on certain looks and facial expressions that she gives to her cousin Skylar, but also just certain looks that she gives in general. For example, there is a scene that happens about halfway through the movie where she finally gets to the medical centre she has been travelling to for the rest of the film. And when she finally gets there, she is asked to do a questionnaire. And even though she is pretty much just answering, normally how any other person would, it's the looks that she gives in between each answer that say a whole lot more than any of the dialogue she is given. And I just absolutely love that about her performance. There are just certain looks that she gives where she might look a little bit worried, or it just kind of speaks a whole lot louder than the words that she is actually saying, and I just love that about this movie. And again, it added to the realism and the natural feel of this film and didn't jeopardize any of the emotional or dramatic moments, because again, that scene that happens in the middle of the movie where she's being asked these questions that are just, you know, standard procedure for that medical center, just from the way she acts in that scene, because again, it is an unbroken take. That whole scene is just this one shot of her on a kind of a close-up, and it just does not cut away from that for the whole thing. And you are just looking at her face for the entire thing, and it is just brilliant. It's simple, but incredibly effective. As I've said before, this is a very grounded and quiet drama that tackles a very important subject in a realistic and almost unflinching manner. That being said, though, I do feel like this movie won't be everyone's cup of tea. The first reason is that the pacing may seem a bit slow for some people. I thought the pacing was absolutely fine. I thought it flowed at a very natural pace and it fit the movie very well. But I know the pacing might be an issue for some people. The other reason that this movie might not be for everyone is purely because of its subject matter. Its subject matter alone is very controversial anyway. But the way it goes to tackle certain things, especially near the start of the movie where Autumn is trying to figure out what to do with the baby that is inside of her and, you know, what possibilities she could take in regards to maybe getting rid of it, that does lead to some very simple but kind of very hard to watch scenes that happen kind of near the start of the movie. And you would expect something like that from a movie about this type of thing. So again, in that aspect, I can see why it wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea, because not everyone wants to watch a film about that thing, and because it's handled in such a brutally realistic manner, it kind of feels more real because of that. So yeah, the pacing and the subject matter alone might not be for everyone, but if you're looking for a very well-made drama that just focuses on character over anything else, then this will be the movie for you, which is why I'm going to give Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always an 8 out of 10. I can completely see why everyone raved about this movie at Sundance. If you want to watch a genuinely good movie from 2020, then I highly recommend you give this one a go. Again, it's not going to be for everyone. There are certain things in this movie that may turn certain people off, but if you're looking for a very well-made drama that just nails a grounded and realistic feel and tone whilst talking about a subject that is very important and needs to be addressed more often, then this movie is just for you. So guys, that was my review of Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye.